This video is sponsored by NordVPN.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking one very big giant seed made by a goddess who it turns out isn't quite as awesome as you thought she might be, and is filled with the souls of thousands of innocents who died in a big old war crime. But we're not just talking about one very big giant seed made by a goddess who it turns out isn't quite as awesome as you thought she might be and is filled with the souls of thousands of innocents who died in a big old war crime. Oh no! We're talking about what that seed, the one from the goddess, the one with the souls, might grow up to be, and most importantly of all, where it will grow up to be. Because today, Internet, we are talking the new tier of Elune bestowed upon the Night Elf leader in one of the new Shadowlands epilogue scenes in 9.2. Because for the first time, it seems like the Night Elves might be about to get their home back, or at least a new home, or maybe an old new home. And yeah, okay, so I have questions, and maybe you have questions too, like, Tally, what are you even talking about right now? How about a little bit of background so that even I can begin to follow you? And that's fair, honestly. So join us as we talk the tier of Elune and what it means for the new home of the Night Elves and where that home will be. Okay, go, 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 go. I think it's pretty fair to say that the Night Elves have had a rough run of things pretty much ever since we met them in Warcraft 3, when we had to help them blow up all their wisps to stop Archimonde from dry humping one of their favourite trees to death at the end of the Third War, where they also gave up their immortality, which, yeah, okay, so not immortal Tyrande is still well over 10,000 years old with shoulder blades you could crack nuts in, which suggests she's currently in peak physical condition at 10,000 years old, which suggests that even not being immortal, she still seems likely to hit anywhere between 30 and 50,000 years old before even thinking about retirement. And yeah, my heart isn't exactly bleeding about their loss of immortality there, but where it really starts getting real is in Battle for Azeroth, an era of Night Elf history so legit distressing that the only way I can really even make it bearable is to present it in the form of a TikTok infoganda clip. So, BFA Sylvanas gets a jailer-induced fourth war boner and launches an attack on Darkshore and Teldrassil in the War of Thorns, killing even more wisps and burning down the World Tree, and killing nearly everyone inside. Totally, actually, an attempted genocide, leaving the Night Elves homeless and refugeed. It was genuinely very distressing. Then Top Girl boss Tyrande got hysterical with the 17-year-old who is the unelected hereditary boss of the whole alliance for some unfathomable reason. And when he didn't want to help her and her people take back Darkshore from the Horde because he was too busy sucking up to the Kultirans and not being able to decide whether he looks like Brad Pitt or Gerard Depardieu, so Tyrande instead gives herself over to the unbridled fury of Elune to become the Night Warrior and basically take back Darkshore herself using only her new divine powers and a year and a half of war fronts. This stopped her being available for the Siege of Orgrimmar 2.0 and Sylvanas' escape, which meant that she was overcome with rage and a lust for revenge, leading to her going AWOL in the Shadowlands as she hunted for the Banshee Queen, only to discover that all the souls of the Night Elves killed in the Teldrassil war crime had gone to literal hell and faced an eternity of terrifying, agonizing torment. We rescued a few and took them to Ardenweald. Tyrande is still very angry. She finally catches up to Sylvanas in the Battle of Ardenweald and is totally about to get revenge when for some reason the power of the Night Warrior leaves her, resulting in Sylvanas getting away again, and Tyrande now just being a big old broken overflowing bucket of rage, which isn't even good for fighting anymore and would result in her tragic death if not for the intervention of the Winter Queen and Elune herself, the actual real life Night Elf god, which is awesome until it becomes clear that the actual god is a bit rubbish and kind of seems a bit embarrassed to even be there, to be honest. But at least Tyrande is saved. We have a new tier of Elune. Tyrande gets to judge and punish the now captured and blue-eyed Sylvanas and send her to the moor forever, and the 17-year-old who was her boss for some mind-boggling reason goes off with her, and actually things are looking up all of a sudden. All the Night Elf souls we saved are having a great time in Ardenweald, just like theirs, but oh no, wait, sorry, no, they've all sacrificed themselves to empower the new tier of Elune. I repeat, all the Night Elves that were murdered in the gigantic war crime and then sent to hell and then rescued from hell have now sacrificed themselves into the seed thing. Come on, for sake. Okay, but seriously, let's look at this bit a little closer because it's important. Winter Queen says, this tear was born of sorrow. Now it shall become a vessel of renewal. The Night Elf souls have turned down the chance of living in Elf Heaven forever to give themselves willingly unto the tear and become part of a new beginning for their kin. The Winter Queen starts calling the tear a seed and says it embodies the cycle of life and death, which Ysera backs up in voice lines after the cutscene. I sense this seed is touched by the dream, meaning the Emerald Dream, as well as by Ardenweald, a symbol of the crucial balance between life and death. While Tyrande says it must be kept safe so that it can take root. And basically what all this is saying is this tear of Elune, empowered and, if the heartbeats that can be faintly heard when Tyrande rests her head against the vessel are anything to go by, inhabited by the souls of the Night Elves lost to the burning of Teldrassil, is going to be used at some point in the near future to grow the Night Elves a new home. Which would make perfect sense. We've already seen the Forsaken, the other race that lost their capital in the Fourth War, start to move out of the refugee quarter in Ohn'Aran and rebuild a new home for themselves above ground in Lordaeron. The Night Elves have, well, a slightly bigger job, frankly. Compared to the undead, there is much less left of their city or their people, and it tracks that this is a story that is going to go on for a little bit longer and receive a fair bit more focus across a whole other expansion. But whatever happens, I'm fairly certain that the Night Elves will have a new place to call home by the end of Dragonflight, and so the question is, where will the seed take root? Where will the Kaldorei make their new home? Here are, in my opinion, the 5 top candidates. Yeah, this might sound a little silly, but how about Teldrassil? After all, the Forsaken have gone back to their OG home, and since, canonically, Darkshore is now back under Night Elf control after the Battle for Azeroth warfronts, what's to stop the seed of Elune, okay, I'm never calling it that again, being planted in the roots of the burnt-out husk, its new life and growth enveloping the old shell and bringing hope and renewal back to one of the most iconic cities in World of Warcraft history? What other location could embody the theme of renewal more? What could better exemplify the cycle of life and death than new life sprouting from the dead world tree? What better example of hope overcoming despair than a smouldering monument to the Night Elf suffering being transformed into a place of life and laughter and light? Elune light. What other location could basically save Blizzard the most work, since they already have all the assets and NPCs? Just make them all ghostly now and say they came out of the seed to hang out in their old new gaff. Job done. What do you say, team? Let's take the seed to Darkshore and found new Teldrassil. No, actually, let's not do that, you absolute ghouls. A Night Elf return to Teldrassil at this stage wouldn't really feel right to most of us, I don't think. The wounds are still too raw and the memories too fresh, and whereas I discovered as I was writing the opening bit to this section, there's lots I really like about the idea, and I think if it was done tastefully, it could actually be a pretty glorious event, to the extent that I never really considered this as a serious option planning this video, but honestly, writing this bit, I realize it's actually one of my favorite suggestions, and one that I feel is probably quite likely too. In fact, I rate its probability of happening as a strong 6 moons out of Night Warrior, but I'm not sure how popular it would be among the player base as a whole. I know it sounds silly, but honestly, the World of Warcraft player base doesn't always completely agree with everything I say. I can understand if you don't believe that, but amazingly, it's true. I think generally there's a desire for the Night Elves' new home to be, well, new, partly to escape the constant reminders of a storyline and world event that isn't particularly well liked among players, but also because a new place is a bit more fun, isn't it? Okay then, where are we heading? On the face of it, there's no place on Azeroth less Night Elfy than Silithus. It's basically like the most run-down, least inviting district of an incredibly shitty town, but hey, you know what? That means rents are low and Silithus is a prime candidate for a bit of gentrification! So where you might see lifeless rusty old Sargeras main hand, I see iconic historical landmark with panoramic views. Where you see red barren desecrated rock, I see untapped build potential. Where you see huge temples filled with insectoid old god spawn, I see a vibrant and an eclectic community and nightlife. If Tyrande's seed, I'm never calling it that again, really is all about renewal, what better place to renew than the gaping wound in the world soul that arguably capped off the events leading to the Night Elves losing their home in the first place? What if the planting of the seed resulted in a new lease of life for a zone that was so shit it was actually improved by near total destruction at the end of Legion? How cool would it be for the whole zone to be turned into a lush and vibrant forest with a sword at the center, the main event? Yes, that's right. Blizzard keeps saying they're going to do something with the sword, but they clearly aren't ever going to do anything with the sword. So how about they kill two birds with one stone? The seed grows around the sword to create the new Night Elf capital and take care of the sword at the same time. I mean, yeah, it's big and ugly and metal, but wouldn't that be extra meaningful as it is engulfed in living foliage and reclaimed by nature like a shipwreck on the seabed, the Night Elves living in the branches that envelop it? As far as we know, it's uncorrupted ever since we sacrificed our artifact weapons to suck out all the bad Titan vibes, and added bonus, it has an incredibly strong connection to the world soul of Azeroth, since it's like, you know, rammed into her actual soul through the crust of the planet. It's basically a direct line. I really like this idea, and I love the thought of the Night Elves taking their seed, I'm never saying that again, and essentially terraforming a dead and barren landscape into a luscious Nelftopia with a barely recognizable sword at its heart. Unfortunately, I just don't really see it happening. This zone was only just rebuilt in-game as recently as BFA. There's already 2 phases of the zone that players can hop between. A third version would probably be considered a bit confusing, especially for new players who, don't forget, will still be funneled through Battle for Azeroth as their leveling content on their first playthrough, an experience which means they spend a fair amount of time in Silithus 2.0, hanging out with Magni in the Chamber of the Heart, which, by the way, would make great underground parking when the elves renovate the tree. And the whole endeavor might seem like it had only ever happened basically to make us all shut up about the sword, which honestly, I wouldn't mind, you know, as my Night Elf priest is strutting out onto her tree sword balcony to take in the beautiful canopy below, knowing that it all only even exists because Ian Hazakostas kind of got a bit annoyed with us all one time, would actually make it better, but Blizz probably won't see it that way. So yeah, a nice idea, but probably not entirely practical. I rate its probability as a slim 4 swords out of what sword? Dick Van Dykeville is one of the great what-ifs of World of Warcraft, bigged up through the lore until finally it appeared in Cataclysm, where it was used to great atmospheric effect as the Worgen's starting area, and then abandoned completely by Blizz in every sense. Mentioned so scarcely that your average player would have a hard time telling you who is actually in control of it officially. The answer is kind of the Forsaken, but here's the thing. There is a long history of cooperation between the Kingdom of Gilneas and the Night Elves, with the Kaldorei taking the refugees from the Fallen Kingdom into Darnassus after Sylvanas' invasion, to Gen Greymane sending his forces to aid Tyrande in the taking back of Darkshore against the orders of Anduin, placing the recapturing of Teldrassil above the liberation of Gilneas in his list of priorities, a gesture that surely will not be forgotten by the Nelves. These two nations are tight. They've been living in each other's pockets for the last 10 years. It is inconceivable that in that shared time in Darnassus, numerous Night Elves and Gilneans haven't formed seriously close bonds, even started families together. They've become a part of each other's lives, and now both sets of people are refugees together looking for a new home. Why wouldn't they team up to reclaim Gilneas for reals? There's loads of space around the city for a new giant tree once the Forsaken debris has been cleared out. The headlands in the north are just begging for something big and leafy to be grown there, and has easy access to Greymane Manor, so Tyrande could pop round to ask Tess for some sugar or eggs or whatever. But the obvious place, in my opinion, would be Tal'Doran in the Blackwald, which could absolutely use some cleansing renewal and has a rather handy connection to the Emerald Dream to boot. You feel this is a choice that would be outrageously popular with the player base, who have been champing at the bit to get Gilneas back in the game as an open, explorable, livable area ever since Cataclysm, and it's easy to see why. It's an exquisitely put together zone that is criminally underused, and adding a new giant Night Elf tree to the area, with the rejuvenation that would bring, seems like the perfect opportunity for a root and branch revamp that would live as a testament to the often surprising and enduring kinship between these two peoples. And here's the thing, it doesn't even seem unlikely as an option. In 9.2.5 in Shadowlands, we saw saw Kalia Menethil take her place on the new desolate council that leads the Forsaken, and then write a letter to Gen telling him that one of the first orders of business will be to discuss the withdrawal of Forsaken troops from the area, something that will take time, but which she believes will see both their kingdoms facing a brighter future. So whether the Night Elves are involved or not, it seems that the Gilneas revamp is on the cards. And what brighter future could you possibly ask for than a big, bright, beautiful world tree in your back garden? This is one of my absolute favourite of all the suggestions in this video. I rate its probability as a solid 8 Worgen out of Druid of the Claw, yeah.
Hey everyone, it's been a minute, but thankfully I've been keeping safe online. I've remained unscathed, apart from some gentle roasting on Twitter, thanks to NordVPN. Now, you know how Talie and I feel about NordVPN. It keeps your connection secure and all of your internet data safe behind a wall of encryption, and of course doesn't track, collect, or share any of your data or browsing history. Talie insisted on that feature. But Nord has gotten even better now, thanks to a brand new feature, Threat Protection. Threat Protection steps up your cybersecurity, protecting you from malicious sites, downloads, trackers, and even intrusive ads. And it's constantly on the lookout even if you're not connected to a VPN. Think of it as a tank who is always there for you.
You called?
Who can actually hold aggro. So say I'm streaming an awesome gay pirate show and just chatting with an old friend and I don't have my VPN on. I can't actually watch this hypothetical gay pirate show without my VPN on, but whatever. And then I see a link for the hottest new Black Bonnet /fic right there. And the link looks very sus and I know I shouldn't click on it, but it's Black Bonnet and I'm only human and my hand slips and I accidentally click on it. That's when Threat Protection steps in and blocks the link I definitely did not click on purpose before any of my personal info can be compromised and my life destroyed. Just think of all the world-changing, catastrophic events that could have been avoided. Should have had Threat Protection on, mate. Oh, and happy ending to the story. I found all the legitimate non-virusy Black Bonnet /fic, don't worry. All thanks to NordVPN. Right now, you can get a huge discount on a 2-year plan of NordVPN plus 1 free additional month, but only through our URL. So head to nordvpn.com/Taliesin and Evitel to check it out. If at any point you're not happy, Nord has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. That's nordvpn.com/Taliesin and Evitel.
If we're not going back to Teldrassil, is there a place on the whole of Azeroth where the Night Elves would feel more at home than Val'sharah? It's got everything they need. Beautiful forests, big abandoned temples worshipping Elune, and even a world tree. Okay, so Sheldrassil is kind of a little bit corrupted by the Emerald Nightmare, but isn't the idea that we basically defeated the worst of that corruption in Legion and have been kind of pushing it back ever since? I think that was the story in Legion. Wouldn't it be great to have a phased non-Legion version of the area to show us what Sheldrassil is like today? Almost seems a bit too easy, doesn't it? A bit too good to be true. And in terms of a new Night Elf home, it kind of is. I feel like if Tyrande hadn't just been given the big ghost seed full of Night Elf souls and wasn't explicitly looking for somewhere to let it take root, Val'sharah would be the #1 choice of new digs for the Kaldorite. But as it stands, there's a seed that needs planting and a big old tree that needs growing, and Sheldrassil already has dibs on Val'sharah. It may have fallen victim to corruption, but it's still a legit world tree. It's not a burned out husk like Teldrassil or an unnatural construction to be grown around like Sargeras' sword. Sheldrassil doesn't need replacing, it just needs curing. And honestly, it's uncertain how helpful a brand new world tree in that area would actually be in achieving that. And also having to deal with a corrupted neighbouring world tree is probably a headache that the Night Elves really don't need in their new gaff. So you might disagree, but I'm going to say this is currently the least likely of the bunch. I'm going to rate it just 2 whispers out of Il'gynoth, sorry. It seems to me highly likely that the Night Elves' home won't be anywhere on Azeroth that we already know of, and it could be worth looking forward to the Dragon Isles for a possible solution. And there are pretty strong hints towards the new continent being the eventual destination for Tyrande and co. Straight after Tyrande receives the seed, she talks to Ysera about the importance of keeping it safe until it can take root, and Ysera says, I know of a place it can be protected, but it has been so long. This seems certain to be a reference to the Dragon Isles, which the dragon aspects haven't set foot or claw on for the last 10,000 years. We know that the Ohn'Aran plains are the part of the Isles with the strongest green Dragonflight presence, which is a vast open space dotted with centaur tribes and lush groves, and this would most likely be the place that Ysera is talking about. Now, of course, keeping the seed safe is not the same thing as letting it take root, and it could well be that Tyrande and Ysera only mean to keep the seed out of harm's way in the Ohn'Aran plains until it matures and is ready to be planted somewhere else, but there would certainly be advantages to letting it sprout on the Dragon Isles. In game design terms, it is a huge new continent with plenty of space for a new world tree, especially one that devs planned was going to be planted there as they were concepting and designing the zone. Much easier to build a specific area in the Dragon Isles that is intended to become the new Night Elf capital than adapt and revamp an old, already existing area. But there's some pretty compelling lore reasons too. You really wouldn't blame the Night Elves for wanting a completely clean slate for their new home, and slates don't come much cleaner than a mystical ancient isle that you've never been to before. There's also that whole thing with Teldrassil not being blessed by the dragon aspects and therefore kind of considered to be a little bit cursed. A feeling that, well, was kind of borne out if we're honest. And it's not hard to imagine a suitably in-depth storyline on the Dragon Isles that sees the aspects welcoming the Night Elves into their own home, the new tree being planted, some cool stuff happening with Ysera and her daughter, and the new tree being given a blessing of sorts from the admittedly currently not immortal dragon aspects. But who knows where the story might take us there. It would be a great way of tying the plight of the Night Elves into the overarching narrative of the new expansion, utilizing the new, absolutely giant, as big as Northrend continent that, you know, is gonna need filling with stuff, let's be honest, and pointing towards a new, exciting future for both the dragons and Kaldor'ai. It seems like such an obvious answer, full of potential, that I rate its likelihood a very compelling 18 Drakthir out of Evoker. But either way, and wherever the Night Elves end up, be that somewhere we've talked about today or something completely different, I cannot wait until these poor bastards do actually have a place to call their own. With all those souls currently in the seed, either bursting forth to help the new tree grow in super quick time, or even better, wandering the streets of the new Kaldor'ai capital, keeping a watchful eye on the citizens and future generations of the Night Elves' new home. But what do you think? Which zone or area do you think is most likely for the Night Elves to shack up in next? Is there somewhere that I've left out of the list that you think seems a likely destination for Tyrande and the team? Let us know in the comments below. Genuinely, please do, because I might want to make a part 2 on this video with enough good suggestions. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to make all of our work happen. And patrons, seriously, thank you, because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evitel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it, and remember, my name is Josh Strife Hayes. No, my name is Taliesin, from me and Evitel and Ohn'Aran and Penny too. Until next time, cheerio!